What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Raider Alex back with yet another video for you guys. Anybody that's new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. With that being said, let's jump right into the topic of this video. The Las Vegas Raiders fell to the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday, but there were some positive takeaways from that game, and one of the biggest ones was how well Aiden O'Connell performed in that scenario. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I did not expect that type of performance from Aiden O'Connell, and yesterday's game was the second time we saw O'Connell out there as a starter this season. In the first outing, it was under the Luke Getsy offense. He didn't look great either, but this week, under Scott Turner, he looked very well out there. He was efficient with the football, did not turn it over. And ultimately, the biggest thing that I noticed was the Raiders finally were able to push the ball down the field. We were able to throw the ball deep, get some big chunk plays. He ultimately got 2 touchdown passes to Brock Bowers and Trey Tucker, which was fantastic to see because for the most part, this offense has just been a dink and dunk offense all season long, especially with Minshew as the quarterback. But it was nice to see that the Raiders were finally able to stretch the field vertically, and they took advantage of an aggressive Kansas City Chiefs defense and made them pay. But today I just wanted to talk about whether or not the Raiders, and most importantly, did Antonio Pierce make a huge mistake this season by not starting Aiden O'Connell at the start of the 2024 regular season. Now, this season has been nothing short of frustrating for us fans. Under Minshew, he led us to a disappointing 2-9 record with him as a starter. And it's hard not to look back and wonder whether or not head coach Antonio Pierce made a huge mistake by not starting rookie Aiden O'Connell from the jump. Now look, let's just break this down. I mean, Minshew was named the starter this season, and there's no doubt he struggled all season long. When Minshew was named the starter prior to the season beginning, after that training camp and preseason battle between the two, many thought that his veteran presence would provide us a better chance to win, especially early on. But instead, I mean, the Raiders offense from the jump has struggled tremendously. In 10 games with Minshew, he only threw for 9 touchdown passes, and he threw 10 interceptions, and that's not even counting the couple fumbles he had. So as the starter, I mean, Minshew averaged more turnovers than he did touchdowns. And Minshew's season suffered prematurely after suffering a broken collarbone against the Denver Broncos. But obviously by then, I mean, the damage was already done. The season has been over for a while at this point. And unfortunately, Aiden O'Connell, when he started against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he injured his thumb, so he was out for about 4 to 6 weeks, and that just leads us to where we're at currently with the football team. So I can definitely understand why many people are just left to wonder what could have been with Aiden O'Connell as the starting quarterback, because as we mentioned earlier, you fast forward to week 13 against the Chiefs, AOC got a real chance to start ever since week 6, and he looked a part of a starting NFL quarterback yesterday. Now, look, it is just one game. We've also seen this with other quarterbacks throughout the league where they haven't played for a while, their first game back as a starter, and they light things up. So I don't want to over-exaggerate and make it seem like Aiden O'Connell is a franchise guy. It's still way too early to speculate that, and just going off of one game where ultimately we still got the loss. And although he played great, he also made a crucial mistake at the end of the football game. Yesterday, I thought that mistake was solely on Dylan Parham, but looking back at it and also listening to the post-game presser from Aiden O'Connell, you can see it was Aiden O'Connell's mistake. He clapped his hands, which indicates that he wants the ball snapped, but you can see as he's doing this, he has his head pointed towards the sideline, where it looks like he's just trying to see if the wide receivers were aligned or not, and obviously he wasn't ready for the snap. The ball gets fallen to the turf, and the Kansas City Chiefs were able to recover the football. Now, it is important to know, I mean, you can make the argument that shouldn't have mattered, that the play should have been blown dead, and although I kind of agree with that, it did seem very fishy how at first they ruled some type of pre-snap penalty, and then the refs gathered together, and then all of a sudden they changed it to an illegal motion, an illegal shift penalty. So look, I can definitely understand that side of the coin, but at the end of the day, if you don't make that mistake, if you just snap the ball and don't fumble it, you don't get put in that situation, and the Raiders could have had a shot to win the game. They could have lined up Daniel Carlson for a game-winning field goal. Now, I will say it might have been a stretch for him to make that one. His confidence level was definitely shot. He missed 3 field goals on the night yesterday. But ultimately, there's no doubt that Aiden O'Connell looked really good out there. He completed 23 of 35 passes for 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and most importantly, 0 interceptions. And one thing I did really like from Aiden O'Connell was that last drive. His overall poise and ability to push the ball down the field gave the Raiders offense a legitimate spark that it's been missing all season long. And to do that in Arrowhead Stadium with 0 timeouts, I did really like how he handled that and how he was able to drive the offense down the football field. But yeah, a late game mistake costed the Raiders a victory. But this performance still left a lingering question, and that is, what if Antonio Pierce had trusted Aiden O'Connell from the start? How much different would the Raiders season have looked with Aiden O'Connell as a starter from the jump? Now look, one thing I will say is some people have said that if Aiden O'Connell would have been the starter, we could have been a playoff team. I definitely would not take it that far. I don't think we would have been that much better with Aiden O'Connell. But there's one thing to know is that, look, after kind of seeing what Gardner Minshew had for 10 straight weeks, I find it kind of hard to believe to not think that Aiden O'Connell could be just as good, if not better. And to me, I think the biggest argument you can kind of make is if the Raiders were going to be bad this season, if we were going to miss the playoffs, you would think that this would have been the perfect opportunity to have Aiden O'Connell start as many football games out there. That way you could get the best and most accurate analysis on him as a starting quarterback. That way the Raiders just know what they truly have with him going into this offseason. And also, I gotta bring up the fact that I have to look at it at the bigger picture. And another decision that Antonio Pierce made that definitely affected the output of this offense was, to me, the biggest mistake that Antonio Pierce made this season was not starting Gardner Minshew, but instead it was hiring offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. We all saw the play calling was atrocious all season long with Luke Getsy. It was very predictable. And the Raiders, for the vast majority of the season, had no real running game. So all this being said, I think the offense was doomed this season under Luke Getsy. We saw Aiden O'Connell against the Steelers with the Luke Getsy offense. He also didn't thrive either. It's crazy to think that the offense is looking so much better under an interim offensive coordinator in Scott Turner. So to me, that really shows how bad of a hiring the Luke Getsy move was for this Raiders team, and it really kind of ruined any chance for the offense to succeed, whether it was going to be Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell under center. So that is something important to note. Even if Aiden O'Connell would have been the starter from week 1, it would be fair to wonder how much the Luke Getsy system would have held them back. But here's my thing. Like I said, if the Raiders were destined for like a rebuilding year, which I think we all kind of saw this possibility prior to the season, obviously we all hope for the best, but you kind of look at it, we had a lot of question marks throughout this roster. So just looking back on this season, we weren't in playoff contentions. So to me, it would have made more sense to roll with the younger quarterback because you fully know what you have with Gardner Minshew. He's a really good backup quarterback. He can win you some games that you're not supposed to. But with Aiden O'Connell, it's still a question mark because some people think he could legitimately be a starting level caliber quarterback in this league, and other people think he's just going to be a backup as well. But if we would have put him as a full-time starter, if he could have played, the full 17-game regular season, now obviously if he would have got injured, that would have been a different story. But if we could have seen him out there a lot more this season, I think this would have helped us a lot to fully answer this question. By us starting Gardner Minshew, we kind of wasted a season, in my opinion, especially when it comes to getting a full analysis of Aiden O'Connell. If this season was going to be a wash, why not use it to assess whether or not Aiden O'Connell can be the franchise quarterback moving forward? Now, obviously, it's still too early to crown AOC as the guy just going off of one performance against the Chiefs, but he definitely showed some flashes that make you believe that he could have been a better option than Minshew. And at the very least, I think he would have injected some more excitement into an otherwise very bleak season for the Raiders. And one thing I think that's going to happen is with Aiden O'Connell playing good, we'll see how the rest of the regular season goes. But one thing that can definitely happen is it's just going to open up more speculation. It's going to open up the door on some people really thinking that maybe O'Connell could be the guy, and just leaving us with a little bit more of uncertainty on what we have in Aiden O'Connell, since he never got a real opportunity to be the leader of the offense this season. Because to me, it is much different being a quarterback for a team early in the season that still has a chance to make the playoffs, that you're playing in meaningful football games, compared to now. I mean, the Raiders are now 2-10. The game of football is played a lot differently when you're out of the playoffs. Now, ultimately, where do the Raiders go from here? I mean, looking back at this, I think Antonio Pierce made two crucial mistakes this season. First, with the hiring of Luke Getsy, and secondly, not starting Aiden O'Connell over Gardner Minshew. And I mean, ultimately, it may end up costing him his job. Now, one thing I will say is the Raiders played really good yesterday. And one positive takeaway from Antonio Pierce is this team has not given up. He has not lost the locker room. So that is definitely crucial for him, because AP is supposed to be that locker room type of guy. So if there's ever a time and place where he lost that, he's absolutely cooked as a head coach, and he would need to get fired as soon as possible. But I will say, I mean, he still seems like a very inexperienced coach. When it comes to in-game management, the Raiders still seem clueless at times. I mean, just in general, the way we handled the football game yesterday, and in the post-game presser, he said that they were going to snap the football just to run the clock out a little bit more. But to me, that don't really make sense. I mean, there's only like 13 seconds left in the game. It was third down. I mean, maybe you could have ran off like 3 more seconds. It doesn't really make sense to me. Ultimately, I think Antonio Pierce just said that because he did not want to put his kicker, Daniel Carlson, under the bus. I think he was just not confident in him. I think he wanted to get as close as possible to try to make a field goal. And look, I don't blame him for that, but I don't really buy what he was saying yesterday. And just throughout the season, I mean, there's been a lot of times where I feel like we should have challenged crucial plays. We don't do it. The selection of timeouts as well sometimes, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, yesterday in the football game, it's 4th down. We send the punt unit out, and then last minute, he changes his mind. We had to burn a timeout there. So just a lot of stuff like that, man. I'm not really seeing a significant improvement from Antonio Pierce in this sense. But ultimately, we'll see how the Raiders finish the season, how the Raiders offense continues to look with Aiden O'Connell for the remainder of the season, how the team continues to play moving forward. Ultimately, I think the Raiders are going to be faced with another offseason filled with some uncertainty on whether or not Aiden O'Connell is a long-term solution at the quarterback spot. But regardless, with us having such a high draft pick, with us very likely being poised to have a top 2 draft pick, we cannot afford to walk out of this year's draft without selecting one of the top 2 quarterbacks in this year's draft, whether it be a Cam Ward or a Shador Sanders. But Raider Nation, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Should Antonio Pierce have started Aiden O'Connell from the jump? Would it really have made a big difference? Let me know in that comment section down below. But with that being said, Raider Nation, that's all for you guys in today's video. Anybody that's new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.